Cables. Love them or hate them, they're a necessary part of the retro gaming hobby. You need them to power your console, connect it to your TV, and of course, plug in your controllers. Now, I don't know about you, but one of my biggest pet peeves are cables that have a ton of kinks in them and aren't perfectly straight. I'm sure many of you who watch the channel picked up a retro console only to find every cable wrapped tighter than your jeans after a Thanksgiving dinner. Now, if you're like me, you want your cables to be clean, perfectly straight, with no bends or kinks. So, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to turn the most bent out of shape cables into something like this. Perfectly straight and bend free. So sit back, relax, and let's see how to do it. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Tito and welcome to another episode of Retro Renew. Today's episode is going to be a bit different in that we're not going to be modding any consoles, but rather addressing something related but often neglected. Cables. More specifically, how to straighten them. In the retro collecting hobby, we often run into cables that are dirty and really just bent out of shape. And if you want to be organized and have those cables last a long time, we need to care for, maintain, and store them properly. And for me, one of the first orders of business when getting a used console is addressing the cables. Most of the time you find that the previous owner wrapped them up super tight and just left them like that for years and years. Or even on the other side of the spectrum, you buy a brand new device and the manufacturer packs their cables bound tightly like this, resulting in cables that got a few kinks in them. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to straighten any cable, whether it's one for a retro console's AV, power, or controller, or even one that's brand new. I'll also go over how to recondition the cable's jacket and my way of storing them to ensure they never get bent out of shape again. Now, in order to straighten these cables, we need to understand why they get like this in the first place. And it's pretty simple. When cables are kept in a certain position for a long time, the outer jacket sort of conforms to that position, causing the kink or deformity in the jacket that's pretty much impossible to get out since it's been in that position for such a long time. So how do we fix this? Well, it all starts with that outer jacket. That's primarily what's holding the shape of the cable. The outer jacket material of most cables is a thermoplastic such as vinyl or what's called PVC. And the best way to reform that outer jacket is to relax or soften the material, which can be easily done by applying heat. Now, I've heard of people laying cables out in the sun or putting them near a radiator to heat them up, but this often isn't the best approach in my opinion. The way I feel yields the best results and that I've been using for years is the use of hot water to evenly heat up the cable. It's an easier environment to control and it gets you pretty consistent results. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So to kick off your journey to straightening out these cables, you'll need a few supplies. First up, a large pot. The bigger, the better, as it makes it easier to fully submerge the cables. This one here is 6 quarts, and I found it to be the perfect size for most cases. Next, you'll need some disinfecting wipes. This is to give the cables an initial cleaning before we submerge them in our water basin. We'll also grab some microfiber towels to dry the cables and assist with the process along the way. I also recommend something like Aerospace 303, which is a vinyl conditioner and protectant. This will recondition the outer jacket and provide a nice protective coating once we're done with the straightening process. I also recommend using some gloves like these nitrile ones to help protect your hands when handling these dirty cables, especially over hot water. And speaking of which, we of course need a bunch of cables that need to be straightened out. Now, another optional item is a thermometer, which we'll use to check the temperature of the water. This isn't completely necessary, but I do find it quite useful to get consistent results. Alright, now before we begin, just a quick disclaimer. We'll be working with some very hot water, so please proceed with caution. If you're a younger viewer, I strongly recommend getting the help of an adult. And just to be clear, I can't be held responsible for any injuries that may occur if you try this yourself. Alright, now that we got that covered, let's get started. So the first step is to fill our pot with water. Again, this is a 6-quart pot, and I fill it to just about 1.5 to 2 inches from the top. Then place it onto your stove and turn on the heat. While we're waiting for the water to come to a boil, now would be a great time to give our cables a pre-clean with our disinfecting wipes. I like to run the cables through like this to get as much of that dirt and grime off as I can. And just look at all the dirt that comes off this cable. It's kind of crazy, but I always find that these older cables from retro consoles get extremely dirty over the years. I also take this opportunity to clean the actual connector ends of the cable, and in this case, the large wall wart. And I'll go ahead and continue to clean all the other cables as well. Man, just look at this wipe. It's absolutely covered in dirt. Alright, so the water should be at a rolling boil by now, so we'll go ahead and cut the heat, but we're not going to submerge our cables just yet. As you can see, our temperature is a bit too high at around 205 degrees Fahrenheit, so I typically wait about 5 to 10 minutes so the water's temperature can settle down a bit. Okay, after about 10 minutes, the water is measuring around 180 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the range we want to be in. Now I'm going to go ahead and fully submerge the cable into the basin as shown. You do not want to submerge the ends of the cable. Hold them just above the water surface as shown. Wearing gloves also helps protect you a bit from the heat coming off of the water, but of course make sure you do not touch the hot water as you may burn yourself, so be very careful here. We're going to go ahead and hold the cable in there for about a minute, which should definitely be enough time to soften the cable's jacket. Alright, once 1 minute is up, carefully take the cable out and try not to splash yourself with the hot water. And then with a microfiber cloth, run the cable through like this. This will both dry the cable and also help straighten it out some more. And while the cable is still warm, quickly find an open area on the floor where you can lay the cable straight and fully extended. Using something heavy like a book or some sort of weight, lay them on both ends of the cable to keep the cable itself straight and fully stretched out. As the cable cools in this perfectly straight extended position, the PVC outer jacket will harden, keeping its shape, which is exactly what we want. Then do this for all your cables and lay them out as shown. So after about 15 minutes, when the cables have cooled down completely, we can proceed to conditioning them with some Aerospace 303. Spray some 303 onto a microfiber cloth and run the cable through it. Do this for all your cables. The 303 has additives that recondition the outer jacket and provides a UV protective film.
Nice.
Alright, so here are the results of running all these cables through this straightening process. As you can see, they're pretty much free of kinks and for the most part are pretty darn straight. Now if you find that you didn't get all the bends out that you wanted to, you can always run it through this process again until you get your desired results. I have to say that I'm really happy with how this bunch turned out, and that despite all the different types of cables we tried this method on, the results were pretty consistent across the board. From the thin gauge cables on some of the power adapters, all the way to some of the more thicker cables, like say for example on this Xbox controller. But now that we got everything all straightened out, how do we keep them like that? Well, it all has to do with how they're stored. To avoid any bends in the cables in the future, never wind them super tight into small loops. Rather, wind them like this, in larger loops. This prevents any unnecessary tension on the jacket of the cable, and as you can see, when you unwind it, the cable remains perfectly straight. I also like to use these Velcro cable ties that not only self-secure to the cable itself, but neatly keeps the cable all wound up. You can then, if you want, put them in a large Ziploc bag like this one here to prevent them from getting tangled with other cables and store them in a large bin like this one. Anyway, now you know how to straighten your cables, and while this may seem like a trivial thing to do, I find that it really helps in keeping all your cables organized, and the great thing is you only need to do this once, and as long as you store your cables properly, they should last you a really long time, and more importantly, they should stay nice and straight. Now I'm actually curious how you all store your cables because I have a ton and it's becoming a bit unwieldy. So if you have any nice strategies on storing your cables and keeping them organized, definitely leave them down below in the comments. Now before I go, I have a quick announcement. I actually recently started a second channel where I cover some of the smaller mods and products that I can't always feature on this channel due to time constraints and the level of production required for these videos. The new channel is way more casual, allowing me to explore these other smaller mods in a more relaxed format. This gives me the opportunity to bring attention to even more mods, projects, and products, which of course I think is a good thing. Also, for Patreon supporters, there are some extra perks. You'll get early access to those videos and the chance to submit questions that I'll answer within the video itself. I know I haven't been as active on Patreon as I'd like, so I hope this is a good way to give back and make things more interactive. Your support really means a lot, and I want to make sure you're getting something fun and valuable in return. To check out the second channel, I'll have it linked down below in the video description. Anyway, I know this was kind of a quick video, but if you found it useful, you may actually like this one here, so check it out. And as always, thank you all so much for tuning in today, and I'll catch you again next time.